Worldwide movement. Peace, love, respect. Big King Sadiq hollering at you one more again. Man, I love you all. Thank you all so much. We are building the worldwide movement very close to the 444 and then going to grow exponentially to 4444. Please keep helping me build the movement. Please like, share, subscribe. Tell folks you know. Tell some folks you don't know. Um, Please check out my music on all the platforms. Check out my books on Amazon. Uh, please check out my Twitter feed. And make sure when you come to the channel, you go to the community page. Please, very important, please make sure you turn on your full notifications, right? That's important. I think a lot of folks are not getting all of my content. Okay, so folks, I can't stress more stringently enough. And I think more and more people across the planet are coming to the staunch realization that war solves nothing. War only proves who has the biggest guns, right? Who's got the more military strength, who may be uh, more dastardly even, right? Who may be willing to do more terrible things to entire countries of people, right? In this, we often see agendas played out, right? Those of us who have unraveled how the old paradigm works knows that the socially economic elite of the planet actually uh, fund all the wars, right? Both sides, and they do so in a manner in which reaps them unfathomable benefit, right? Unfathomable uh, uh, wealth and power, right? Um, all at the cost of human life, which I think is absolutely terrible. And many people, many more people, ever increasingly think so as well. Because again, it simply does not solve any problem. Just who is the bigger bully, right? Um, and right now, I think this is one of these instances where we are seeing an agenda played out with this conflict between this most recent conflict between Israel and Palestine, which, folks, when you look into the history of this conflict, right, um, and the death toll in general, human life we're talking about, uh, taking over something that in general should be part of a subject that is quote unquote holy. So if that's the case, how can you even align it in any way with murdering innocent people, which is the cost of war, right? This is what ultimately happens in every military conflict. There are innocent people killed, not fake deaths, not push a button and they start over again, right? Not wait a minute and as long as your teammates don't get killed, you get respawned. We're talking about real men, women, and children, innocent babies, shot, blown up, you know, buildings fall on them, anything can happen, right? You know, people in hospitals get destroyed, all sorts of things. War is terrible. We know that. Most of us so much so that we shy away from even thinking about the reality of it. But when you formulate an opinion or take some sort of make some sort of an attempt at an objective look at a conflict of that nature, you can't just take the realities out of it, right? You can't take the true cost of human life out of it. But yet, those in power in these conflicts seem to do so with ease, right? And they would say, "Oh no, it is with great, you know, with a heavy heart that I do this." But yet they do it just as quickly and easily, with not and without, right, exhausting all other remedies. They'll say they did, but if you examine it closely, you see they did not, right? Uh, Folks, there is no justification for pushing a button or giving an order to release a weapon of whatever level of destruction that kills innocent men, women, and children. Just living their lives. While if we experience that, and I think there's a lot of people on this part of the world who are so detached from that reality that other people live, right? That they develop that mentality, right? That, oh, push the button, good, because I've heard a lot of warmongering amongst folks, right? As resolution to different things going on in the world that they see is wrong. Folks, going in and killing it's not a solution. And we need to stop and think about something. If we're adopting that mentality as our means of going around the world and solving conflict, what are we teaching our children when we do that? Not only future generations, but those children right there in the home with you right then and there. The ones you tell to act right when they go to school, not to be violent, hitting and fighting and whatnot, right? The ones you tell to be civilized as they go about the world and do this and do that. Yet they're not blind. They're not deaf and dumb. They hear you supporting violence, right? As long as it has the right cause or you're on the right side. There is no right cause. There is no right side to giving an order or pushing the button and killing mass amounts of women, men, children who have nothing to do with what you or what your conflict is over. May directly have, in most instances, directly have absolutely nothing to do with it. But they had to die so that you could prove a point. And folks, if we just using common sense, all the violence that's taking place in this particular conflict that I'm pointing out, but this could be applicable to any conflict that folks attempt to resolve in these means. After all of this bloodshed, it's not solved. Still not solved. And will never be by those means. You'll just have more bloodshed and loss of innocent life. Has that not been what we've seen for centuries in this particular conflict? Folks, we have to start right now putting much higher value on human life. That's got to be the foundation of our consciousness, because we can't move into higher consciousness by, accepting that human life is something easily dispatchable or dispensable without any great weight of conscience, right? Because that's not civilized. That's barbaric. That's savage, right? Think about this most recent attack. And by the way, all of this is my opinion. Every stitch of it is just my opinion, right? But think about this most recent attack or military campaign launched by Israel into Palestine. Now, they'll say it was in response to attacks that we've suffered on our side. And maybe in some instances there were attacks. And innocent life lost is innocent life lost, whether it's Israeli or Palestinian or American, Mexican, French, Spanish, whatever. Human beings, right? Um, think about this attack, though, and see if you don't see where agenda plays out, right? In your opinion, and have we seen this similar agenda? We don't have to guess because Israel bragged about the intense and overwhelming military force, troops, equipment, vehicles, weapons, heavy armament, right? Advanced technological weaponry, both surface to air, air to surface, you know, aerial platforms, the whole nine. I mean, they showed military superiority and exercised it with deadly precision, right? And bragged about it. And bragged about it. Massive loss of life again. When you start to take a real toll of the total loss in this time period, right? And in this particular most recent attack, you know, I couldn't help but just see the pride in the Israeli leader who spoke about the precision of their attacks and, you know, the targets that they hit. I just couldn't help thinking about all the innocent men, women, and children literally running for their lives from bullets, missiles, you know, debris, all intent on mass slaughter, right? Oh, excuse me, specific target slaughter that somehow accidentally yields loss to innocent life. Wow. Wow. Folks, in my opinion, this is a prime example, right? Um, of what must change in our consciousness, right? The willingness to ever go to these extents to solve any conflict, which again, it actually doesn't solve anything, but the willingness to take life, especially at mass rates, we got to evolve out of that, folks, period, right? Then the agenda's played out. Hey, man, listen, uh, I haven't said that either side is right, because again, I've stated that it's not right to take life as means of trying to prove a point, no matter how holy or, you know, high value or importance, right? Or to solve any conflict. Doesn't solve the conflict, and you just taking innocent life, right? At the same time, look at some of the agendas that are playing out around the world. So I understand that the United States and Israel are allies, right? However, do we not don the banner of the guys who go around the world fighting for justice and democracy and, you know, supposedly helping out the little guy? Oftentimes, and I've researched this myself, again, loss of life on either side is terrible and tragic. Period. In examining the conflict specifically in recent years, right? We can although extend that back for probably the past 20, 30 years. But specifically in recent years, we've had a pretty lopsided conflict, you know. With none of it being right, you may have an attack or a pipe bomb or some projectile on the side sent by a Palestinian individual or group. Again, terrible because we're talking about loss of life. But the response seems to always be met like 100-fold, right? Something like that'll happen, and the Israelis are going to the West Bank and destroy like an entire neighborhood or city, right? I mean, those of you who've done even a little research into this have seen the footage of children falling out of buildings as Israeli machinery are knocking over the buildings, like they're rolling through in tanks and bulldozers, along with all the weaponry. But yet, and this is where I say you can see agenda, because it's got to be labeled nothing other than propaganda when in the US and around the world, the Israelis are made out as the underdog, as the victims, overwhelmingly so, that are suffering from these mad terroristic attacks. Now, I say when you look at the dynamic of it, that's not the case. And here recently, they even brag about how that's not the case, because they brag about their dominance and their precision and strength in this exercise. And you can look back and see similar rhetoric to previous efforts that have been similarly as lopsided. So again, loss of life on either side, the taking of life on either side, wrong. Proves nothing, doesn't solve anything. But when you see a lopsided effort in the favor of one, and then our government, right, or at least, well, no, oftentimes in financial support and other forms and military support, is supporting the big guy rather than the little guy. That's the reality of it. I understand there are those who may not like me saying it. I'm not trying to be anti-Semitic. I've said a number of times, loss of life on either side is wrong. But you also can't feed me like a delusional perspective on this, where we could say that like there's equality and that the United States is throwing all this aid to help a defenseless little guy. No, they're throwing more and more on the side of the one that's exercising the bully mentality, right? At least in the way these military campaigns are shaking out. That's my opinion on it. We don't see, or what has been the response, what has been the humanitarian response sent from the United States to Palestine, given this most recent attack, when they know innocent men, women, and children have been killed or injured severely? What has been our humanitarian response there? Does it compare at all to what we've recently done in the Ukraine, for example? Again, what's going on there? Not right. Loss of life, taking of life there on either side, wrong. It's just my thought on war and taking of life. But I'm not blind to agendas, nor should any of us be. So just think about these things, folks. Form your own opinion. Worldwide movement, peace, love, respect. Big King Sadiq, I am out. I love you all. Please accept my gratitude for helping to continue to build the worldwide movement. Peace, love, respect. I love you all.